Hello, everyone. This is Cobb of the Krabby Club in the Casual Cup Giraffe League, and forgive the scuffed setup, but I wanted to record a little weekly match review. So to share my team builds, the kind of preparation that I did, and my strategies during the matches, because that is to me the most fun part of playing Pokemon. So we have my draft roster here. We have Tapu Koko, Melodic, Cobalion, Blaziken, Laurentis, Dragalge, Azelf, Clawitzer, Dusclops, and Mega Gallade evolved. And then this week we were fighting against the Garreg, Mach, Garchomps. Um, one second. Yep. So they have Tapu Bulu as a tier 1 pick, Alakazam, very fast, very strong special attacker, Empoleon, Diancie, Spiritomb, Entei, Blissey, Toxicroak, Oricorio, and Mega Garchomp. So immediately when I looked at this roster, the biggest threats that I anticipated was Alakazam because it is faster than everything and can basically nuke a lot of my especially weak mons. Tapu Bulu just because it's got some good bulk, it's got amazing power, and a good typing. So there wasn't too much I had that could break through that. Empoleon got rocks, Diancie gets rocks, Blissey gets rocks, and Garchomp are all stealth rock setters. Oricorio is a defogger, and I believe Empoleon is as well. Don't quote me on that. But overall, this was a very tough roster, especially because there were so many different leads that he could do. And so I want to highlight Toxicroak. Choice Scarf Toxicroak was something I was very afraid of, just because it is also faster than anything I have. So even if I set up with Mega Gallade, set up with Blaziken, it's just faster. It can start spamming Earthquake, Gunk Shot, whatever. Probably not Gunk Shot, but it can start spamming stuff, and it is a pretty powerful mon. It does have dry skin, so it can switch out if I was trying to, go on a tear with Clawitzer or anything like that. Honestly, just pretty terrifying. Garchomp actually gets slower when it Mega Evolves, in which case Gallade outsped it and could one-shot it with Ice Punch, so I wasn't too afraid of it, as long as I could get that momentum as long as I get them both out of the field at the same time without switching at anything awful. Blissey I was also pretty afraid of, and that was pretty much single-handedly the reason I did not bring Melodic into this battle. Entei, very strong physical powerhouse and extreme speed user, which in hindsight, I did not account for nearly enough. Spiritomb is kind of a rock. I feel like it can status stuff, but it doesn't have too much of an offensive presence. It's very slow, but it is enough to force a stalemate in some situations. So I did sleep on Spiritomb a bit. Diancie, I underestimated at first. It is the Stealth Rock setter. It's got good typing. Empoleon, I also did not. I didn't pay too much attention to it, but I did make sure to account for rocks and stuff like that. But yeah, Bulu, Alakazam, Blissey, Choice Scarf Toxicroak, and Mega Garchomp were definitely the threats that I was looking at the most. And as a result, I crafted this team build. So I'm not going to go through it quite in order, but at the core of this team, I had Tapu Koko, which was running dual screens, along with Taunt to basically prevent things from setting up on it, and U-turn to basically put the walls up, switch back out into something else that can set up while being protected by those walls. And in that case, it was both Blaziken and Gallade that served that purpose. Both have Swords Dance. So in response to Koko, I did expect him to switch to Bulu, in which case I would U-turn into Blaziken. Blaziken's holding the Grassy Seed to get that defense boost, because Grassy Terrain will overwrite whatever Koko is, Electric Terrain, if he sends it out in response. Blaziken is limited to the Blaze ability, of course, because this isn't Ubers. But it did have Acrobatics for that purpose. After it just consumed the seed, it could kill Bulu. Earthquake just for general coverage against Empoleon, against Toxicroak, and Swords Dance to set up, and then once it got that defense boost, or the defense boost was optional, but once it set up, then it could baton pass into Gallade, which would then not have to set up at all and could start destroying things with Shadow Sneak, Earthquake, Ice Punch. So no stab here. I did focus entirely on coverage because in most of these cases I won the speed battle and just wanted to fire off like a super effective move right away when other stuff wouldn't exactly work. So yeah, Gallade is Mega Gallade, pretty standard. Maxed out attack. Speed is just enough to outspeed everything except Alakazam and Scarf Toxicroak. And I did originally run Knockoff instead of Shadow Sneak, but as a whole I switched it out because even without Swords Dance it could kill. I failed to realize this, but after Rocks, which Alakazam is not affected by, but I did not notice that it would instantly kill, but it does do around 90% damage. So I figured even a weakened one, I'd have priority. Don't need to worry about the speed, even though Knockoff was a guaranteed kill, and it was a guaranteed kill against Oricorio, which was another thing I was worried about, trying to set up with my fighting types. But as a whole, I was really comfortable with this set. Ice Punch, of course, can one-hit kill Garchomp, and the speed EVs and nature allow it to outspeed Garchomp. And yeah, defense was just to give it a little extra boost. And I believe there was one move in particular I tried to, I think it was Extreme Speed from Entei, I'm not sure, but with the defense boost, baton passed, the 80 defense EVs would allow it to survive something or make it less than a 2-hit KO. I don't exactly remember why that was there. But yeah, on the other side, we have Blaziken, who was mostly defensive because I wanted to maximize being able to set up behind those walls. Speed, let's say outspeed, not nearly as much as Gallade, noticeably worse speed, but it outsped things that mattered, most notably Tapu Bulu, which it wanted to kill with acrobatics. And attack EVs are just enough to guarantee that kill with acrobatics. That was Blaziken's main role, and if once that was accomplished, then he could start setting up those things. So yeah, these three, Tapu Koko, Gallade, and Blaziken, were kind of the three I was going to rely on the most, just because of their very solid coverage across the board. And the other three slots I filled with mons to kind of support them in that role. So initially, I did want to lead Azelf. Azelf is an amazing suicide lead. It has very good speed and very good attack, and special attack as well. It can set up with Nasty Plot in a different universe where I'm using it for that purpose, but I did originally have like a Stealth Rock, Taunt, U-Turn, Explosion kind of set on it. And that was fine, but once I started doing mock battles with Ethan, he put together a team using the Garchomps roster. And we found that it just wasn't that effective. First of all, he could switch Spiritomb into it if it were to try to explode. He could kind of just force taunts and sucker punches and all that. And you can kind of see that it ended up happening anyway in the match. But, and yeah, against Diancie, it just could not threaten at all. Explosion barely did any damage. We were focusing on explosion damage because you want to make the most use out of the suicide lead. And if it's only doing 25% as and you're losing a whole mon for it, even if it is at 1 HP, it's after the sash, it's like, I don't know, we didn't really like it. So we did repurpose it into sort of a mid-game offensive force. Gave it some good coverage in Ice Punch and Knockoff. Gave it U-Turn, kept Explosion just to destroy the physically sort of weak mons, namely Alakazam, which would be insta-killed by it. Ice Punch it does have Levitate ability, so I'm sure I had that in mind when I gave it Ice Punch to cover Garchomp. For example, switch into a ground move and then kill it with Ice Punch, or force the switch, which if it's set up, then he loses that setup. And then Knockoff was for Alakazam and Oricorio as well, assuming it held an item. So yeah, Azelf I feel like I didn't use really to its full potential, but it still, had I played it correctly, I do believe it could have served a pretty good purpose. And I switched the role of the lead to Cobalion, gave it an air balloon, just in case it survived its role as a lead, and I brought it back, and then I was able to switch into a Scarfed, switch into a Scarf Toxicroak that's using either Earthquake or some other poison move, and force that to switch out. So it is a pretty basic set on this. Just Volt Switch for, I have a very solid, you'll notice U-turn, U-turn, U-turn on Coco, and Volt Switch on Cobalion. There's just a very flexible, constantly moving roster. Stealth Rock, of course, to set up and mitigate or de-incentivize switches. Taunt, of course, to cripple the other leads or things that are switching in. And Iron Head, specifically to target Diancie lead, because that was definitely the problem that I was struggling with the most initially. As for stats, nothing too special. Speed is enough to outspeed everything it can, which I believe, I'm not sure if that includes Entei, and I'm too lazy to check. Special defense is enough to survive Psychic, I believe, from Alakazam. I did not invest too much defensively in this because, while I did give it the air balloon, I could have given it a more useful item, but overall, like, I was just kind of aiming for that gimmick. Once it got the rocks off, once Diancie was out of the way, or it could Volt Switch on something, then I didn't really need to worry about it anymore. In hindsight, it definitely could have played a better role on my team, especially in this match. And finally, we have Klotzer, who didn't really have a particular role other than to just be a nuke. I did put Life Orb on it, so it does have this Mega Launcher ability, which all of its pulse moves will have 1.5 times power, and Stab Water Pulse is 90 power times another 1.5, so it's 135 power Water Pulse that I can just spam, 20% chance to confuse. So yeah, and included in this Mega Launcher ability are Ice Beam and Aura Sphere, which is just there for good coverage. Aura Sphere can cripple Empoleon, Blissey. No, not really Blissey because that thing's a tank, but I did put it in there for coverage, particularly, as well as Ice Beam, which was there for additional coverage against Oricorio and Garchomp. So yeah, Life Orb to maximize damage output. So this thing's looking at, I don't even want to know what the calculation is. I imagine like 160 power on this Water Pulse. Maximize the special attack. Give it a little bit of bulk in HP. And the 8 speed is just enough to outspeed uninvested Diancie. Not that it would really matter in the end when it comes down to things. But the 248 HP bulk was definitely proved useful towards in the match. So that's kind of, yeah, that's the team I was looking with here. In terms of prep, I didn't, other than the vague strategies, I didn't really flowchart it out. And you can tell during this match that I ended up suffering quite a bit from just poor decision making, suboptimal plays that caused me to lose such crucial mons, particularly Gallade and Azelf, very early on. And the rest of my team managed to clutch it out and kind of pick up the pieces, but definitely some not great decision making, and I want to go over that in this match review. So just to start, something to note is that he didn't actually bring Diancie, he didn't bring Blissey, and he didn't bring Toxicroak, which were 3 of my biggest threats that I was worried about. So that at first I was pretty relieved, then I was like, wait, hold on, some of these mons I've actually been sleeping on. I played them last season, slept on Cradily, and got like swept by it. So I was a little worried that I'd slept on Spiritomb. Entei, I was kind of just like, oh yeah, I can kill it with a coverage move here or there. And Empoleon ended up being a lot tankier than I had imagined. So to start this match off, of course, he led Tapu Bulu, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting a Rock Setter first, and I did put Cobalion out, which wasn't the worst interaction. I did outspeed it, and I could 2-hit kill it with Iron Head, as you can see here. But Superpower was a lot, popped the balloon. But I knew he was going to switch the next turn because he's not stupid. I would just kill it with Iron Head otherwise, so I called out the switch to Empoleon because I figured his next Rock Setter. Volt Switch was kind of a ballsy move because if that setter ended up being Garchomp, then I would have just been sitting there. So I set Coco out, kind of had the threat of an electric move, even though I had no offensive moves on it other than U-turn. I wanted the threat switch out, prevent Garchomp from setting up with Taunt, or use Taunt to prevent it from setting up with Swords Dance, I should say. U-turn back, and what I should have done right here, I sent out Gallade very stupidly. I kind of had tunnel vision. I was like, all right, I got to Ice Punch. I got to Ice Punch it. I got to kill it. But I completely forgot about Azelf, which has Levitate and I did run Ice Punch on it as well, which would have killed. So this was such a terrible move on my part. Getting Gallade out there early, not set up at all. Gonna take damage from the Earth Power, so special attack and Garchomp actually kind of interesting. The Ice Punch did kill it, but it put me in this situation where Alakazam is now out. It's going to kill me. I tried to take as much as I could off of it with Shadow Sneak, but I knew I was going to die eventually. I couldn't switch Gallade back out into anything, into any moves in particular. So that was a big loss. Both of our Megas are out as our first Mons. So I put Coco back out. I wanted to... So I did originally put Nature's Madness. Kaiser there switching his avatar mid-match. I did originally put Nature's Madness on Coco just to kind of de-incentivize it, or give it a little bit of something useful to do in the stalemate sort of against Spiritomb here. I kind of just let Cobalion die for no particular reason. Not that it was going to be terribly useful for the rest, but so yeah, here I'm just setting up the screens once again. Coco with the light clay is going to let it last 8 whole turns. Going to taunt this again so it doesn't try to burn me. And yeah, other than that, he switches back out to Bulu, which is what I was expecting. So that's going to allow me to... I finish setting up my screen here, and then the next turn, I immediately U-turn to Blaziken, consume that Grassy Seed, and get the defense boost where I can start setting up. And this will outspeed it and kill it with Acrobatics. Yeah, not going to gain much damage from that. So yeah, Acro kills. I'm still behind the screens. There's nothing that can... Actually, Alakazam could 100% kill me right now. But he does send out Entei instead, which I thought was interesting. He does have the Stone Edge on it, as we see here, but the damage is negligible due to my typing and the walls. So I'm just going to set up with a couple Swords Dance. I was expecting the turn immediately, the switch immediately. So that's why I didn't just throw out another an Earthquake, for example. Although in hindsight, I probably could have. So I did set up with the second one. It didn't really serve me well because I did get the kill on the Empoleon, but Alakazam comes out the next turn, outspeeds me, and wrecks my shit. Even through the light screen, which is quite terrifying. So yeah, Blaziken's now gone. My offensive presence is kind of running out. I have Coco, which has no offensive moves at all. Azelf, which can't really take any hits at all without dying. And then Clawitzer, which hits like a truck, but is very slow. So I kind of just drew this out as long as I could. Tried to I don't know. I knew something had to go kill this the Spiritomb, and I made the absolutely terrible mistake. I believe I set the screens up and just U-turn right into Azelf, which I should not have done at all. Because like Azelf, I didn't have anything on it. That's where an actual fairy move on Coco would have come in handy. But it's whatever. So yeah, I do try to knock it off. It doesn't kill. And it does try to burn me. It misses. But stupidly, I get greedy, try to U-turn, and I get sucker punched. I thought he would like call my bluff or something and think I would switch. So that was my fault for losing that gamble. I did taunt it again. It's going to doesn't try to burn me this time. I'm going to go for some damage on Psychic. And yeah, sucker punches me, but he knows the U-turn's coming. So I just kill it. Then my problem is I was forced to U-turn into Clawitzer, which is slow. So that's going to take a hit from Alakazam. Reflect wears off. So I do have the light screen protecting me this one turn. But yeah, it does have Psychic. It's going to hurt me a bit. U-turn's going to kill it. And now I'm left with Coco and Clawitzer against Entei. So I knew I'm going to die this turn. So I just outspeed it. I throw out the Reflect just so, yeah, Flip is going to kill. Just so Clawitzer is able to survive one hit. I know it doesn't have extreme speed because if it had extreme speed, it would definitely have used it against Blaziken earlier. So that's why I wasn't scared of anything crazy like that. Flare Blitz, even though its stab is resisted and blocked by the wall, so that Water Pulse is going to kill it in a very, very close battle. I was very terrified. But yeah, thanks for watching this video, I guess. I know it was super scuffed setup, but I did enjoy just talking about it, going over the strategies, what I wished I would have done. So yeah, see you guys next week.